The sky was gray, the air heavy with the scent of impending rain. As the guards pushed you into the village, your wrists were shackled, your body bruised from the rough handling. Your heart thudded with a mix of fear and confusion. You didn't know how you ended up here. One moment, you were in a bustling city, and the next you were captured and thrown into a prisoner's cart with no explanation. The guards sneered as they led you through the narrow streets, ignoring your protests and pleas for answers. The village was strange, unlike any you'd seen before. The buildings were crude and made of stone and wood, with rough, sewn doors, and the windows were muddied from a recent storm. The air had a weight to it, faintly metallic, yet earthy, the scent of fresh soil after a downpour. You stumbled as they dragged you into the center of the village, where the entire town had gathered. The murmurs of the villagers stopped as they turned to stare at you. At first, you thought they were merely curious. The looks in their eyes were filled with something else: apprehension, judgment, and something darker. They finally halted in front of a massive structure at the end of the village. A stone building, its entrance guarded by two imposing figures, massive orcs, their green skin glistening under the dim light, muscles rippling as they stood there. One of the guards roughly pushed you forward. You stumbled into the clearing right at the village. A building stood there, as well as a figure. A figure stepped out of the shadows, causing the villagers to fall silent. He was an orc, much like the guards, but unlike them, he was no normal one. His broad frame towered over you, and the dark green of his skin was almost black under the faint light. His eyes sharp and amber, but locked onto yours. You couldn't help but feel a chill run down your spine. There was power in his presence, an air of authority that made the entire village bend at his will. He walked towards you with purpose, his heavy boots thudding against the earth as he drew closer. You noticed the intricate tattoos that ran across his arms and chest, symbols of strength and rank in his tribe. His hair, long and dark, it hung around his shoulders, tangled waves and tusks, ivory and sharp, protruding from his lower jaw, giving him a fearsome appearance. The guards who brought you here stepped forward, bowing his head in respect. "Chief Grok, we've brought you a prisoner." Grok didn't answer. Not immediately, anyway. His gaze fixed on you, studying you with intensity that made your stomach twist. You took a step back instinctively, trying to distance yourself from him, but the guard who had been handily shoved you forward once more. "Enough," Grok's deep voice rumbled, a command that silenced the murmurs of the crowd. He looked to the guard, and in one fluid motion, he nodded towards the stone pudding. "Bring her inside." The guard moved quickly, unlocking your shackles and grabbing your arms, forcing you into the building. You barely had time to comprehend what the hell was happening before the door slammed shut behind you. You were pushed into a large, dimly lit room. It smelled of wood and burning incense, the faint scent of earth lingering in the air. The room was sparse, with a large pit of fire in the center, crackling as the flames flickered against the stone walls. A thick fur rug covered the floor, and an imposing throne sat at the far end of the room, clearly meant for the chief. "You will stay here," Grok's voice boomed from behind you. His presence was unsettling. You turned to face him, your heart hammering in your chest. What? What is this? Why am I here?" you demanded, trying to steady your breath, confusion and fear overwhelming you. You found it hard to think clearly in the face of such an imposing figure. Grok's amber eyes narrowed, and he crossed his arms over his burrowed chest. "You have been brought here by the will of my tribe. You are to marry me." You blinked, disbelief washing over you. "What? Marry you? I don't even know you. I don't even know where I am. I can't marry you." His gaze never faltered, though his tone remained calm. There was an edge to it. "You have no choice." The tribe had spoken of its customs. The bond of marriage strengthens the unity of the clan. It will be an honor for you to become my mate. The words hit you like a physical blow. Your heart raced as the reality of the situation began to sink in. You were trapped, far from home, and the only way out was to submit to this monstrous orc's demands. You opened your mouth to argue, but Grog stepped forward, his presence overwhelming. "I understand your fear," he said. His voice was slightly softer now. "But you must understand, this is not a punishment. It is a responsibility. As a chief, it is my duty to unite our people, and you, stranger, are now a part of that." You shook your head, trying to comprehend the gravity of the situation. "But why me? I'm not like you." Grog tilted his head, slightly studying you with a strange mix of curiosity and something else. Perhaps compassion, though you couldn't be sure. "You are strong. I've seen many, but none like you. The tribe sees potential in you even if you don't." His words stung, and you wanted to protest, to scream, but you didn't know what to say. There's something about the way he spoke, the way he carried himself. He wasn't like the other orcs. There was wisdom in his eyes that made you pause, but it did put you a little bit at ease. I can't marry you. I want to go home. I don't belong here," you said, trying to speak with more determination this time and hold your ground. His eyes softened ever so slightly, though his resolve remained unchanged. "You will learn to understand in time. This is the way of our people." Before you could respond, one of the carts entered, face grim. "Chief Grog, there is a matter of time before the ceremony." Grog nodded once more, turning towards the guard. "Prepare the ritual. It must be done before the next moonrise." The guard bowed, quickly leaving the room, leaving you with him once more. The chief looked at you, his amber eyes glimmering in the firelight. "The ceremony is important," Grog said quietly, "but it will not change what I have told you. You will come to see that in this union, it will benefit us both. It's not just marriage, it's a bond between our tribes, a promise of peace." Your mind raced, your pulse quickening. There was no escaping this. The village, the ceremony, the future that lay ahead, it was all happening too fast. "I'm not ready," you whispered, your voice shaking with the weight of your fear. Grog's expression softened, but only for a moment as he reached forward, his large hand reaching towards yours. "You need not be ready. You are mine now. We will do this together." He took a step back instinctively, rebelling against him, but you knew deep down that it was futile. The orcs were not people that you could resist. So against your will, against everything you thought you knew about love and choice and acceptance, you found yourself bound to him, bound to a life you never chose, in a world that was foreign as the stars above. But for all his strength and power, he would become your husband. This orc was about to shape your destiny. And whether you wanted it or not, the marriage ceremony would mark a beginning in your life. A life that you never asked for, but one you'd have to learn to live. The days blurred into one another. You were no longer a prisoner, but neither were you free. The villagers treated you with a strange mix of respect and wariness, most deciding to keep their distance, but occasionally offering you small acts of kindness. They would leave food outside your door or offer a word when you crossed paths with them. Still, the whispers followed you wherever you went, the air heavy with judgment. It was a week before the ceremony. The reality of what awaited you pressed down on your chest like a weight, and no matter how many times you tried to reason with yourself, the fear never left. Never fully, anyway. The night before the ritual, you sat in the room Grok assigned to you. It was modest, no lavish decor, but it was comfortable enough for what it was. A single bed, a small hearth with a crackling fire, and a large wooden chest that served for both storage and a table. You had grown used to this isolation in your days since your arrival. Only your thoughts and the occasional visit from a guard or the village elders for company. A soft knock on the door roused you from your thoughts. You stood up, quickly wiping your hands on your dress as you moved to answer. When you opened, you were met by a young orc woman. Her green skin and sharp tusk a sharp contrast to her soft features. Her amber eyes studied you carefully, a look of concern in her gaze. You are the human who is to marry Chief Grok, yes? She asked, in a voice that was, though gentle, had a commanding tone. Yes, I am, you replied. Swallowing hard, you tried to stay out of the way, hoping for some kind of miracle to set you free, but that had yet to come. The orc woman stepped inside without even waiting for an invitation. She had the air of someone who knew your place, and you couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She closed the door behind her, then turned to face you. Don't be afraid, she said, her voice softer. I am here to help you prepare. Tomorrow is an important day. The ceremony is a sacred tradition, one that cannot be rushed or taken lightly. You stiffened at the mention of the ceremony. You didn't realize how quickly it had come. I'm not ready for this. I don't want to do this. I never asked for any of this. The woman snarled, but her expression softened with a hint of sympathy. I understand. No one expects you to be ready, but this is the way of our people. The bond between Chief and his mate strengthens our tribe. Grok is a good leader, and he will care for you. You shook your head, fighting your emotions that threatened to overwhelm. I am not a part of this world. I don't belong here. You don't understand. I don't even know him. The woman stepped forward, placing a hand on your shoulder, her touch gentle. That is true. You don't know him. But in time, you will come to understand the honor of being his mate. He is not like the others. He will show you respect. And maybe over time, you will find a way to understand him too. You looked into her amber eyes, searching for any deception, but all you saw was sincerity. Still, the fear that gripped you wouldn't loosen its hold. Tomorrow you will wear this. She pulled out a small bundle from her side, a simple yet elegant dress of deep crimson. It was made with soft flowing fabrics that shimmied faintly in the light. You stared at the dress for a moment, meeting her eyes. I don't know if I can go further with this. She smiled. I cannot force you to do anything, but I will help you prepare for when the time comes. You will choose how to face your future. The woman left shortly after, leaving you alone with the dress in your hand. You sat down on the bed, the weight of the fabric heavy against your chest as your thoughts raced. Would you ever accept him? Could you ever accept this life? The next morning came quickly. The villagers had gathered in the clearing, next to the stone building. The air was thick with anticipation. You stood in front of the fire pit, wearing the crimson dress that felt more like a shackle than a garment. The villagers were some curious, others more respectful, all watched as you stood there, your back straight and your heart pounding. Grok arrived soon after that. Earth shaking beneath his boots, he walked towards the gathering, his presence commanding. He commanded the attention of everyone. The people parted as he passed. All eyes turned to him, watching his move. He wore armor that was instinctively carved with symbols that glimmered in the sun. His hair was bound back, with a leopard tie, and his tusks were polished and gleaming. His transformation from an intimidating leader to a ceremonial figure was striking. He looked every bit like the king of his people. When his amber eyes met yours, something in them softened, just for a moment. You held his gaze, refusing to look away. Are you ready? Grok's voice was deep and unsteady, but you could feel the weight of the underlying tension, the weight of the occasional pressing down on him. He nodded, unable to find the words to explain how you felt. You weren't ready, but you weren't sure if you were ever going to be. But this was happening, and you had no choice but to face it. Ritual began. Sounds of drums filling the air as the villagers circled around the fire. It was ancient, sacred, and while you didn't understand any part of it, you could feel the power behind it. The chants were foreign to you, and the words had a sacrifice that you couldn't quite grasp, but you understood the purpose. Grok stood forward, extending his hand to you, his expression unwavering and his fingers calloused and strong. His touch was surprisingly gentle as he put them over your own. This is binding, he said in a low rumble that vibrated through your chest. In this moment, we are bonded. We become one. Our bond will last beyond the day, beyond this lifetime.